Hey Sainers, welcome to Saints TV. In this video, I want to talk about the pre-season. It's done now. We've played our couple of games, 2 good wins, but I wanted to go all the way back to the start of pre-season in terms of players that have come into the club, players that have left the club, how the club is going in terms of training, in terms of player growth and development leading into the 2021 season. I feel like there's a lot to talk about. There's some good stuff, there's some bad stuff, things that need to be worked on, and things that obviously getting us very excited for the season. So let's get into it. So at the start of trade period, there's a lot of talk, a lot of rumors about who we were going for, the big fish. Turns out it was Brad Crouch, so he was the big fish. We landed him, we landed Jack Higgins, we landed other players like McKernan, few question marks over players like that. Frawley coming in, Mason Wood training with the club, and then finally it was Paul Hunter, the ruckman from the Sandful. He finished in team of the season last year. When you look at these players, when you kind of go through the list and see who we got, it's more, to me at least, added depth, and that's something that we didn't really have last year. Was that just the level of competition in every position. And you can see that when the boys play, and we'll talk about that when it comes to talking about the preseason games. So you can see that level of competition where, one player comes off and the next player comes on, and they're challenging for the same spot. It adds that pressure that every good team has. Richmond has it, Geelong has it, West Coast in years gone by has had it. The previous premiership sides have all had competition in every position across the ground. I think we've probably got that better than most teams now, solely because of the ins we got. We got Crouch, that inside mid that we needed. We got Higgins, who can go mid, but he's a dangerous forward and is still young. McKernan, who can go forward, take a good contested mark, as we saw last Thursday night. But he can also pinch hit in the ruck, so that's another great thing that we have. He can also go back and provide a chop out if we're under pressure, because he can take marks. Frawley, that added depth in defence. With question marks over Carlisle, we needed to look at some support for Dougal Howard, which allows Nick Caulfield a bit more free time to just do what he does best, which is just be third man up, intercept mark, and rebound. Then you've got Mason Wood, who was delisted from North Melbourne, and there's a few question marks about what he can bring to the team, but based on his performance in the first practice game against his old side, he kicked 4 goals, was roaming around the ground, good aerobic capacity. That's one thing that Mason Wood has is, endurance. He can run all day. So I feel like he's got the makings of a good player. He may not be an absolute A-grader. We didn't get him for that reason. But if he can, offer a chop out for the Members and the Kings, and he kicks 1 or 2 goals every few weeks, then he's done his job in my books. The last one, Paul Hunter. I think that was fast-tracked, mainly to do with Rowan Marshall's injury. That was, something that I guess the club noticed, and Rowe put his hand up and said he can feel something in his leg, and they're giving him that rest, which is great. I thought Paul Hunter the other night was fantastic. I thought that, he was beaten around the ground a little bit in terms of tap work, but when it came to, his mobility and his willingness to get to a contest and to provide an option in terms of, handball, or even just providing pressure, he actually went and laid a few tackles, and that's a great sign for a tall ruckman. He was in the Sandful Team of the Year last season, so that says everything, that he's got some talent, he's got a bit of X factor. And he kicked a great second goal. The second goal of the game last week against Carlton, snap on the run. So that's a really good sign to see that he can hit the scoreboard as well as just provide that outlet around the ground. So I think when you look at those ins, Crouch, Higgins, McKernan, Frawley, Wood, and Hunter, we cover bases that we needed to. There's probably, now with Frawley being on the injury list for 10 weeks with his hamstring, that hurts our defence now, because we got him for that depth, and now we probably need to bring in, I forgot to mention him, Highmore. And obviously, they're probably not going to get much of a look in. Highmore will, I think, because of the injuries, but I don't really see Matthew Allison getting a gig, solely because the forward line is so stacked. We've got King, we've got Membry, we've got Battle, now we've got Wood, who can give a bit of a chop out. Paddy Ryder can go forward, McKernan, Rowan Marshall when he's fit. So there's so many tall options there. I think it's going to be hard for Matty Ellison to get a gig, but that's no problem. The VFL's back. He can go and play for Sandy, get his experience, put on some body mass because he's quite a light frame, and that just means that he doesn't have that pressure of thinking, okay, I've got to really work hard to debut. He can just take it easy, play at Sandy, kick a few bags, get experience in an AFL environment, learn off the Max Kings, the younger blokes have come into teams, learn off the experienced heads of McKernan and Membry, and then hopefully in 2022, 2023, he's there and he can create a really good partnership with Max King. So I think, in terms of the ins, guys, for the preseason, for the trades, we did better than most teams. That's 2 years running that we've done a fantastic job with the players that we wanted to get to the club. Every player that's nominated us has essentially become a Saint. The other one was Caldwell, but Essendon swooped in, and when we got Crouch, I think that kind of put question marks in Caldwell's mind that, I probably can't break into this midfield now with Crouch and Higgins coming in, so he's gone to Essendon and probably going to get more games there than he would at St Kilda. So good for him. But for us, we did a great job. In terms of outs, it was draft picks and delistings, and then the only other trade was Nick Hind. So essentially we've traded out Nick Hind and a few picks, and we've gotten all of these blokes to the club as well. And obviously Frawley didn't really cost anything, and McKernan as well. So, we did everything that we needed to do, and now it's, just training, prepping, tweaking a few things from last season and making the most of the next few weeks in the lead up to round 1. In terms of injuries, this is the only real downside to our preseason. Geary hurt his leg again in a preseason match. I believe it was an intra-club, went for a big mark, and that's it. He's out for, I think, another month or two. It's not as serious as his previous injuries, but he's already been out for a good 3 or 4 weeks of training, and I don't foresee he'll be back into the lineup until at least round 4 or 5, even in the conversation from round 4 or 5 this year. Ben Patton's the tough one to take because of his great season last year on so many small forwards. Just gets the job done every week. The general, no fuss sort of defender, and every good team needs a player like Ben Patton in defence. But it was an unfortunate tackle from Jared Roughhead in an intra-club game. These things happen in footy, and he broke his leg in 2 places. So he's out for the entire season. Then you've got Zach Jones, a bit of a hamstring tightness. He should be okay for round 1 from what Brett Ratner said. So he didn't play in the both preseason games, but he'll be in the conversation for round 1. So that's great signs. Dan Hanbury is supposedly good to go for round 1, but they didn't want to risk him. He's too important. That's what Brett Ratton said after the game in the press conference following the Carlton win. And then you've got Rowan Marshall, who's felt a bit of tightness in his leg, but should be back, he thinks, around rounds 3 or 4. So if we can get Marshall back in round 3 or 4, and then Crouch comes in round 3, we're looking like a very strong team when that happens. And then the unfortunate one was James Frawley doing his hamstring against Carlton in the first 5 or 10 minutes. And the club's just released today that he's going to be out for 10 weeks, which is unfortunate because it's just great. It was great to have a Frawley back at the club, number 24, his late uncle's first number at the club. And he was in great form. He played great against North Melbourne, and he was probably in conversations to be in that centre-half back position supporting Dougal Howard in round 1. But now it's opened the door for Highmore, and it's obviously opened the door for Jake Carlisle, who hasn't played in either matches this preseason. I believe he played in the reserves game the other day against Carlton, which the club lost by about 7 points. Not sure how the guys, particularly Carlisle, performed in that game, but he'd obviously be in the conversation with Highmore for that round 1 centre-half back position. This brings us to the preseason games. So we've had 2 preseason games this preseason. The first one was a practice game at Arden Street against North Melbourne, and it was pretty comfortable in the end. The score was 140-49, a 91-point win. It was comfortable, it was clean, it was dominant. It was basically the perfect practice game. No injuries really out of that. Jack Bytel dislocated his finger, but that was probably the most serious thing that happened in that game. Every quarter we won by a couple of goals, and Mason Wood kicked 4, Jack Higgins was fantastic, Battle kicked 3, Membry kicked 3, King kicked a couple. So it was as comfortable a win as you could have asked for it in a first practice game hit out. And it's good to really just put the foot down against a bottom place team like North Melbourne. Too many times last season we kind of let poor teams off the hook with our own mistakes and our own complacency. But in this game, we didn't show any complacency. We got the job done, clean, classy, and fairly dominant. So perfect performance from our boys. The second game was a bit harder against Carlton. This was the Community Series game, so taken probably a bit more seriously. Back at Marvel Stadium in front of a crowd, pretty strong team, to be honest. We fielded a team that could easily be a round 1 team. And we ran out 125 to 99 winners. So for me, it was great kicking a high score again. In the 2 preseason games this season, we've kicked 41 goals and we've conceded 21. So pretty comfortable there. We've kicked 20 goals more than our opposition in 2 games. So that's on average a 10-goal win in those 2 games. But you'd say the only downside is that we did concede 15 goals against Carlton, and a number of them were avoidable. They were stoppage goals, close to goal where we just needed to hold the ball in or clear it out, and we couldn't do that, and they capitalised and kicked goals there. There's probably 5 or 6 of their 15 that could have been avoided, and that win could have been a bit more comfortable. But, going into, I think, the last Community Series game tonight, which is, I think, Brisbane Gold Coast, I think. If that's kept to a fairly average score, we'll finish with the 2 highest scores in pre-season. 140 was the highest, that would be us, and then we've got the equal second highest, 125, and I think Port Adelaide or someone else has hit a score like that. So to get the 2 biggest scores in pre-season, even though it's pre-season, is still a very good sign that attacking wise going forward, we are switched on, we are dangerous, and our forward line is clicking. We did only concede 6 goals in the first game. We conceded 15 in the next, and Carlton were missing a substantial part of their starting forward line. They didn't have Casbolt, they didn't have Kerno, they didn't have Eddie Betts, they didn't have McGovern. So that's pretty disappointing that we conceded that many. But I'm going to take that with a grain of salt. We were trying a number of different things. It wouldn't surprise me if we wanted to put ourselves under that sort of pressure to see how we go in tight moments in a game, and to see how we handle that pressure, because last year we struggled at times to handle that constant pressure when teams were coming at us, especially when we had started well and then they would catch up. There was the Fremantle, Melbourne, and North losses come to mind when you think of those situations. But in this one, we handled the pressure, conceded a few goals, but then we finished strong and sealed the win. So to me, our attack has improved. The man on the mark rule is benefiting players like Jack Sinclair and Brad Hill, and we'll come to them shortly. But obviously, I think that also means that our defense is going to be under a bit more pressure because the ball is going to be coming in fast. That's the one thing that I haven't quite seen in our 2 preseason games, is that forward line lock-in pressure. Against North, it made sense that we didn't need to do it because when the ball went into the 50, it was never coming out. We were either holding it in anyway or kicking a goal. Against Carlton, they probably rebounded more than I would have liked, and I think Ratton would agree there that they kicked a lot of goals when we couldn't convert going forward, but luckily we kicked a big enough score that it was hard enough for them to catch. But there's going to be games in the actual season this year where teams don't let us score heavily and they're going to be able to rebound, and that's where we're going to have to learn the balance of not going fast all the time and maybe just manning up and playing more of a one-on-one instead of a zone. We went zone against Carlton. Against North, it didn't really matter what we did because it all came off. But against Carlton, from what I saw, it looked like we were trying to plug holes and not really manning on our direct opponents. And other good teams like Geelongs and the Richmonds, they're going to capitalise on that. They're going to hurt you. So we're going to have to just tighten that defence a little bit. But no doubt, Ratton's got a plan A, B, C, D, E in his booklet, and they'll be trialling those and training up on those in the next week or 2 leading up to round 1. So my best players in pre-season, Jack Sinclair's got to be number one. You know, he was great against North, but watching him live against Carlton at Marvel Stadium the other night, this guy just runs all day. His thighs are huge. He knows how to kick the ball right foot, left foot. He had 28 disposals at 89 or 90% efficiency, which is ridiculous. He kicked a goal. There were so many moments where, you know, Carlton were putting our defence under pressure. He'd be high half back. He would have started at half back and he would just break the congestion, either just by tapping the ball out towards a player or getting it himself and getting the quick hands out. And that's the thing with Sinks, is he's got that explosive, you know, 20-meter sprint in him. His top line speed isn't lightning like a Brad Hill, but his 15 to 30-meter sprints are great. And that gets him enough speed, enough momentum to break away from packs, to break away from his direct opponent, and to get the kick or the handball away. So, you know, him and Brad Hill, I can envision they're going to have some massive games under the roof at Marvel. And that brings me to Brad Hill, actually. He was fantastic the other night. And I called it last year. Everyone was giving him shit. Not everyone, but a lot of people were giving him shit that we paid a lot of money for him. We traded big for him, got rid of Blake Acres, and he wasn't living up to the hype. But if you watched him the other night live, you would understand that he's going to love these full-length games again. The first quarter last week was 34 minutes, and I think most of the quarters were 29 to 32 minutes long. Every quarter in the last 4 or 5 minutes, he was running rings around the opposition. They were all gassed. They could not run. They were static. They were stagnant. They couldn't turn. He would be getting the ball, getting the 1-2s, and that's where I think he's going to get the bulk of his possessions. He'll start games well, but he's going to finish games very well. And if we're in a tight game and we need players to keep running, we've already got 2 guys by the name of Brad Hill and Jack Sinclair that are not going to stop. And if those 2 do that all season, that puts us, you know, 10, 15% better off on field than we did last season. And we finished 6th last season and won a final. So if they can do that with the natural progression of players like Hunter Clark-Caulfield, Jack Higgins coming in, Brad Crouch offering that outlet to Jack Steele, and then Max King's just natural development and freakishness of marking and roving his own ball and kicking goals, then we're going to be laughing, guys. So I think, you know, apart from Sinclair and Hill, I would say that Higgins stood out to me. He kicked 1 goal 3 the other night. He kicked 2 goals prior to that against North. But it's just his aggressiveness. He's not a big guy, but he's explosive. And it's easy to say that, you know, he's like another Jade Gresham, but he's his own player. I think he's a bit cleaner than Gresham. His kicking's better. His set shots are better. And he might be a bit more aggressive. Gresh is aggressive, but Higgins is a different sort of animal. And I love the contested ball style that he brings. He's a big player in a small body. So when he's in the midfield, he plays big because he's explosive, he's aggressive, he loves getting clearances. But then when he goes forward, he plays small and he's got that nimble, small forward prowess about him. And, you know, I can see him kicking, you know, 4 or 5 goals every few weeks. And then I can also see him having 32 possessions and running all day and setting up, you know, big moments in big games. And that's the other thing. I think he's a big game player. I think that, you know, he'll love playing, you know, when we get back to playing on the MCG, he'll love playing there. I can't wait to see how he goes against his old side. But you just think that in big moments, similar to a Milne back in the day, that he's going to kick some amazing goals and bring a lot of smiles to St Kilda supporter faces. And I still pinch myself that we got him. I think he's going to be the more exciting trade out of him and Brad Crouch. Brad Crouch hasn't really, you know, kind of set the house on fire. But he's done his part. Against North, he was good in terms of clearances, got a lot of handballs, a lot of high ball gets. Against Carlton, was a bit quieter, but I think he had reduced minutes and he still ended up with about 13 or 14 possessions and a couple of clearances as well. So, you know, it's exciting times for the club. The pre-season couldn't have gone better. The only thing I would have loved to avoid was probably the Ben Patton injury as the top priority, because that was avoidable. Geary is Geary. You know, we've got Webster who's come in and looks very good and very at home, filling in that small back pocket position, which would have otherwise been for Ben Patton or Geary, depending on who was fit at the time. And then Jones will be back for round 1, 2. Marshall back around 3 or 4. Frawley back in about 10 weeks. And then, and that's about it. So we're looking okay. You know, we've only got one serious injury. The rest are going to be back probably mid-season at the latest. So we're in a good position. You know, this is the first time in a long time that commentators are giving us credit. Opposition supporters are treating us as a very good team. Matthew Lloyd is saying that we're going to finish top 4, top 5. He thinks that we should win 2 finals and make a prelim at least, which is crazy. He thinks Max King's capable of kicking 50 goals. So there's a lot of positivity around the club, and that's great. And, you know, even better news is that we've actually ticked over 45,000 members. We're 3,000 or 4,000 members ahead of this time last season. So we're on track to break our record and hit well over 50,000 members for the year. So congratulations to everyone that's signed up. If you haven't signed up, bloody do it already. The club's going places, and based on how tough it was to get tickets for the game last week, you're going to need a membership to get to games this year. So if you don't have a membership, it's going to be tough to get tickets. And if you do have a membership, it's going to be a lot easier. But you should be signing up anyway. This is the most exciting St Kilda side we've had in over 10 years. And, you know, I've got full faith in Rats that we're going to do some pretty exciting things this year. So jump on board if you haven't already. I've got some fan comments, guys, so I'm going to read some out. Thanks for everyone for submitting them on Instagram. I basically just asked everyone, you know, what are your thoughts on our preseason? What did you think of our preseason? And these are some of the comments that people have come back with. So thanks again for everyone that's submitted. And sorry if I didn't read yours out. There were a lot to go through, and I picked my favorite 9 or 10. So let's go through them now. This one's from Josh Tomlin. He says Brad Hill, Hunter Clark, and Sinclair. Enough said. Yeah, basically those 3 were outstanding in the preseason game. So, you know, Brad Hill and Jack Sinclair are going to offer that gut running and that high disposal efficiency around the ground. And then you've got Hunter Clark, who's just doing things in his own time, slowing the game down, and that ultimate composure that a player of his inexperience and age should not have yet. But it's scary that he already has that, because that means he's only going to get better. Next one's from Jude Sanders. They say, as long as we clean up our defence at stoppages in our back half, we're looking good. I agree with you there, Jude. The rest of our game plan looks great. It's just stoppages deep in defence that we just need to manage a bit more. So I have no doubt that that's an easy fix. There's harder things to fix in football, but your defending at stoppages, I think, is something that we can iron out pretty quickly. This one's from Hespy. Losing Patton is a massive low, but seeing Webster step up is a big high. Hoping to see him in round 1. Very good comment again. Webster the other night was fantastic. It's as if he's not missed a beat, you know, that he wasn't out at all over the last few seasons. His disposal is elite. He's got a great left foot. He's physical, he's fast, and he looks hungry again. You know, he doesn't really have anyone challenging for his spot because Geary and Patton are injured, but he knows that those 2 are probably ahead of him, particularly Ben Patton in the future. So once Patton's fit, he's going to have that competition on his hands again. So this is his time to really stake a claim for that position and make it his own. And he's got all season to do it now because Patton's out. So from what I've seen in the couple of games he's played in the off-season, he's ready to take that responsibility and make that position his own, which is great. This one's from Harry. We can push top 4. I agree, mate. We definitely can. It's a hard draw, but we've got the depth to cover the injuries, and we've got the talent to challenge the best teams from last season. I have no doubt about that. And we're playing more games at Marvel Stadium, which we play so well at. So you can't underestimate that influence on our season. This one's from Alfie. Loving the balance of the squad. We have some serious depth, and we score frequently. Yep, good point there. Our goal-kicking efficiency has not dropped in this off-season. Last year, we were the most accurate team. This pre-season, it's looking like we're going to be the most accurate team again. But also, we are scoring a lot more, games longer. Both times this season, we've kicked basically over 20 goals. So it's 40 goals plus in our 2 games. So, you know, that's back to Grant Thomas days where we were kicking over 120 points a week, which makes it very tough for other teams to win. You know, even if our defense is leaking, that means that the opposition have to stop us from kicking 20 goals anyway. So if we can guarantee that we're going for 15 plus goals a week, we're going to be a very hard team to beat week in, week out. This one's from Sam. Great squad depth and competitive 22 squad selection. Jack Sinclair looks rejuvenated. I agree there, mate. Very competitive 22 squad selection. There's going to be, a lot of challenge for positions. Every spot, there's got, one or two players going for that spot, and that's what you want in a good team. This one's from Georgia Ross. Sinclair is going to be good this year. Yep, stating the obvious there, but I think he's going to be very good this year. He could well finish, top 5 in the best and fairest. And I think the way he's going, he could even win it. So we'll see how he goes, but he's done everything right in this off season, apart from grow a filthy mullet. That's the downside. But I'm interested to see if he actually keeps it, along with Dan Butler, to see if they actually keep those mullets for the actual season. This one's from Daniel Burns. I think it's the first year in a while we've entered the season with the league's respect. Yep, first time in a long time that, even my mates are saying Saints are going to do something. Pundits, the commentators are all tipping us to do some things. There's a few that still don't rate us, like David King. He still doesn't rate us, but I think he's just got an agenda against us. But, majority of the experts out there think that St Kilda's, a team that you don't want to play late in the season and don't want to play in a final. So that's good for us. This one's from Monica. For the first time in a long time, we have depth and hunger for positions. I agree there. A lot of comments on depth, but I think that's probably our biggest strength. Not only have we got a team capable of kicking a big score and a very good coach with really good supporting staff, but we've also got serious depth, and that's something that you're going to need this season. Every team's going to have injuries. Every team's going to have, ups and downs in terms of form. So you need depth to try things, to try players in different positions, to take Frawley out, to put Highmore in, to give Higgins a rest, to give Bytel a run, who I think is going to be great this season. So that, to me, is the biggest strength any good team has. And Richmond have got it to the point where they had to give us, well, they didn't have to, but they gave away Dan Butler for nothing last season. And we've seen how good he is for us. Essentially All-Australian, should have been All-Australian last year. And they've given us Jack Higgins this year. So that's how good Richmond are going. And that may be the case for us next year, where if we're going really well, we're unfortunately going to have to offload some very good players to be able to pay for the upcoming stars that we've got in the team at the moment, as well as funding going for other big names like a Josh Kelly, or a Tim Taranto, even a Ben King, if he puts his hand up to want to come to the club. So we're in a fantastic position, guys. And that's, basically what I think of the preseason. We've gotten the players that we needed. We've gotten, a midfield bull. We've got some excitement in Higgins. We've got some good defensive depth. We've got some ruck depth. We've got a couple of really good players in the draft. Highmore, a mature age defender who could be Wilkie 2.0. We've got Matty Allison, who's, a work in progress, a young kid that's got a light frame, but could be a very good forward in the next 2 or 3 years when he puts on a bit of body mass. And then, just the general increase in maturity and experience from the Hunter Clarks, the Nick Caulfields, the Max Kings, these sort of guys that I think are going to take us to the next level. And Jay Gresham coming back, the Gresh Prince over here, I think he's going to, be very important for us in the midfield and forward as well, and offering that chop out with Higgins. Even Jack Steele can rest forward like he did the other night and kick a goal or two every few weeks. So, the team is as well balanced as any team in the competition. Our depth is probably the best in the competition, and we've still got crazy improvement. We're a very good team as it is, but there's still so much more that we can be, and that's the best part, is that we're not playing at our best yet. Our best could be very, very good, because more than half of our team haven't hit their peak yet. We're in that age bracket where there's a lot of 23 to 27-year-olds that are going to hit that peak form in the next year or two. So if it's not this year that we make a grand final or make a prelim, you can put some money on it. The next 2 or 3 years, we're going to be thereabouts, pushing for our second flag that we all desperately want. And fingers crossed it's sooner rather than later, because I'm getting sick of seeing Geelong and Richmond play off in those big games. It's about time a new club comes along, and hopefully that club is us. But That's it from me, guys. I'll leave it there. That's my preseason take. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I know it was a bit top line, but I just wanted to go through the players that were brought in, why we brought them in, the players that are injured and where we can expect them to come back, the preseason games, the scores, how we went in those, the key positives to take from that, the improvements that we can take from that, as well as the best players from the preseason, and your comments as well. So thanks a lot for everyone for submitting your comments. Thanks for you guys for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing to the YouTube channel and Facebook and Instagram. The podcast will be out tomorrow night, so stay tuned for that. Myself and Joycey went to the footy last week, so we'll be talking about the review on that with Marshy as well, who will talk about the AFLW and the performance from the girls on the weekend. So until then, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I'll chat to you in a week's time, or a bit over a week now, probably not this week, but next Wednesday or Thursday, the preview of round 1 against GWS when the teams come out. It's going to be exciting. The season is so close now, guys. I cannot wait for it. So until then, guys, thanks very much for watching, and go you mighty Saints.